Hello, this is Michael F. Mercurio, and today I'm showcasing the collective works of Right by the Rails, the Prince William chapter of the Virginia Writers Club. Their aim is to raise the profile of the literary community and explore ways to nurture, cultivate, and help that community grow. If you're a writer, published or unpublished, affiliated with Manassas Park, or Prince William County, Virginia, consider joining by emailing them at rightbytherails@gmail.com. There is no charge to join. For more information, you can visit www.rightbytherails.org. If you're interested in any of my own stories that are floating around out there, I do have my own blog set up specifically for my fiction, which can be found at anxiousmuse.blogspot.com. Or you can simply Google Michael F. Mercurio, and I'll most likely be the first result that comes up. The music that is playing in the background of these readings was actually written and performed by me, and as such, both the music and the stories are protected under copyright. However, if you would like to use any part of my material, you're certainly welcome to do so, as long as I and the respective authors are publicly given credit for it. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you enjoy. The following two poems are written by Catherine M. Gotthard and are taken from her book of poetry entitled Weaker Than Water. About Abundance, a poem by Catherine M. Gotthard. Unbury the life you once had, the one you'd long forgotten, the one before the stars were born. Unbury the life you wish to live, the marvel of superb minnows, of ivy and turtles and silence, and the surprise that released you the first time you recognized you were never made of manure and mud, but of sun and rain and angels, feeding you with fingers of abundance. Grotto by Catherine M. Gotthard. Sometimes a storm strips my mind down to a puff, a bird's cry for mercy and worms, and I, in my now naked head, wander back to the monastery, the grotto, the place my parents brought me when I was young. God was always a cloud, beams streaming through gray, like my most brilliant self. She Wags Her Tail, a story of Marley at the nursing home. Written by Lindsay Poppy. Illustrations by Carlos Limos. Read by Michael F. Mercurio. Marley is a black German Shepherd mix. Mean-looking, scary-looking, sweetie pie of a dog. She's very smart, and she knows, as soon as I put on my vest and pants, then it's her turn to get dressed. She loves to put on her vest, hop in the back seat of the car, and head straight for the nursing home. Marley is a therapy dog. She went to school and took a lot of tests. Now she can visit people in schools, in libraries, and nursing homes. A nursing home is where people go when they need help taking care of themselves. Marley wants to help, make them smile. When Marley says hello to the people at the nursing home, she wags her tail, and she wags her tail, and she wags her tail. She likes to visit people at the game table, all those people in one place. Where shall I start, wonders Marley, as she wags her tail. Marley hears, I love you, and what a pretty girl, and she wags her tail. I used to have a dog, says one woman. I love dogs, says a man, and she wags her tail. She's so soft, Marley hears. How beautiful, they say, and she wags her tail. Sometimes Marley just gets a pat and a smile, with no words, and she wags her tail. Sometimes Marley only gets a stare. Still, she wags her tail. Marley likes to go past the birds in the cages. The birds sing. Marley looks, and she wags her tail. Noises don't bother Marley. Sometimes alarms go off, but Marley keeps walking, and she wags her tail. Marley gets a treat in one room. She knows right where the room is, and she heads straight for the man in his chair. She sits in front of him, and of course, she wags her tail. Sometimes Marley sees a man using a walker to get down the hall. The walker has tennis balls on the bottoms of the legs to help the man slide his walker down the hall better. Marley loves to play ball. When she sees the balls, she thinks it's time to play, and she wags her tail. Marley has a therapy dog friend at one nursing home. His name is Rocky the Corgi, and he doesn't really have a tail. Marley is very happy to share the smiles, and she wags her tail for the both of them. Rocky gets placed on a bed so the lady can pet him. Marley patiently waits for her turn. Then she walks over to the bed, and she wags her tail. Marley has a new friend at another nursing home. His name is Abe, the greyhound, and he wags his tail too. Abe used to work for a living as a race dog. He's retired from racing and is a therapy dog now. These days, he just works for smiles, and he and Marley wag their tails together. When we've made our rounds, and it's time to go home, Marley knows she's done a good job, and she wags her tail. "See you next time," I say, and "Did you have a nice visit, Marley?" I ask, and she wags her tail all the way home. The following excerpt is from Who Gets to Name Grandma by Carol Coven. I have a friend who is the second child in her family, but had the first grandchildren. She got very upset when her older sister later insisted on letting her child pick names for the grandparents, and then demanded that my friend's children change. So, who picks? The grandparents? The parents? The children? Is there really a right to the original birth order of the siblings, even if the birth order of the grandchildren is different? I imagine that I was a very young-looking grandmother when my children both announced they were expecting. Friends flattered me by agreeing. So, the question became, if I look and feel too young for the old, wrinkled, stooped, gray-haired image we all assume goes with the name Grandma, then what should I call myself? One friend came up with the name Glamma, short for Glamorous Grandmother. I loved it. When I announced to one of my sons that I had found just the right name for my new station, he and his wife were crushed, as I quickly saw by the shocked looks on their faces. Her grandparents had all died before she was old enough to know them, and her parents had both died within a year of their marriage. My son stammered, "We thought you'd be honored to be called Grandma, because you will be our child's only grandmother." Well, of course, I am. And that settled it. Grandma it is. I know of many families that wait until a child mangles the words Grandma and Grandpa and sets the pet name as Gamma, Gammy, Gam Gam, Pawpaw, Gamps, or some such version that belongs to the first child who says it, and the rest then learn it. It is an affectionate bond between grandparents and grandchildren. Others rely on cultural traditions for names. Nani or Nana in Italian, Abuela in Spanish, Baba in Serbian, Bube in Yiddish, Lola in Filipino. French-speaking Eleanor Roosevelt asked her grandchildren to call her Grand Mère, also the title of a book about her by her grandson, David. Nana seems to be one of the most common choices, as is Mima. In my own family, we used Grandma and Grandpa appended to last names. Some use Grandma appended to the first letter of their first name, as in Grandma O. A friend came up with G-Mom, which I think captures her impish spirit. There are a few other relationships where name is so open to discussion and negotiation with others as that of what to call the grandparents. It is not a legal designation, but one of love. But perhaps it is also one of power, as power shifts from one generation to another, or within generations. Recognizing that power play may help shift the discussion back to love. Children learn quickly that people have more than one name. Adults have one name for each other, another for their children to use, and another more formal name. Relationship names are part of a child's world from the very beginning. They will call their grandmother whatever they are encouraged to call her, and she will come to whatever they call her. Just don't call her old. Granny Guru's Grains of Wisdom. People's names are part of their identity. Children can adjust to whatever the decision is, even if every child has their own name for Grandma. The following poem is submitted by Dan Werner for National Poetry Month. This is Bucket List by Dan Werner. This is not what you think. It's not a list of things I want to do before I die. I don't need a list for that, and besides, I don't like the term. I think long-term to-do list is much more dignified, and that's what I would call it if I had one, which I don't. Rather, this poem is about different kinds of buckets. I know I could have written about different kinds of tomatoes, or potato chips, or bacteria, but I was thinking about buckets the other day and how useful they are. When you want to carry almost anything, water, sand, cornflakes, radioactive isotopes, a bucket is just what you need. It don't let you down. Although you might let it down, particularly if it is heavy. That was a bucket joke. I hope you enjoyed it, although it wasn't that funny. I was on a roll. I like rolls too, but this is not about rolls. It's about buckets. Buckets were invented a long time ago, about 6,000 years ago, give or take, by that famous female inventor, Anonymous. They were used to carry things even then. What else would you do with a bucket besides put it on your head to shield yourself from meteorites? Don't laugh. A man was struck by a meteorite one day and it vaporized him. At least no one ever saw him again. Maybe he just ran away, but I like the meteorite explanation better. If he had been wearing a bucket on his head, the bucket would have been vaporized as well. Did you think it would have saved him? It's not a magic shield, it's a bucket. And while it's cool enough to write a poem about, let's not expect too much of our friend the bucket. So, in ancient times, the buckets were used to carry stuff like bricks, and mortar, and water, of course, and grain, and money, think Scrooge McDuck, and nuts, and berries, and twigs. There are many kinds of buckets. The child's sand bucket, the mason's bucket, the milk bucket foaming and steaming when filled with milk fresh from the cow, the galvanized pail of many uses, the lunch pail, which is actually a bucket, the plastic bucket beloved of suburbanites, the car washing bucket, the collection bucket, bucket seats, bucket trucks. There's bucketing along and kicking the bucket, which is where I came in this poem about buckets. I hope you have several buckets in your life, and if you don't, I hope someone gives you one. I would give you one of mine, but I need them all. The humble, simple, utilitarian bucket. Kinda sounds like that promotion for eggs, you know, the incredible edible egg. Maybe we need something like the egg board, but for buckets. A bucket board. I like that. Let's do it before we kick the buckets. All hail buckets, which, by the way, may be used to collect and gather hail if you want, but it's a fool's errand pretty much, although the bucket doesn't care. Another reason to like buckets, and I do. I hope you do as well. And I hope you have enjoyed this poem about buckets. Thank you.